Hi, everybody. Dr. Kazi Esco here. Thanks so much for joining me on Wellness Wednesday today. I'm hoping this is recording live on Facebook here. I'm going to be showing you some things and sharing my screen with you tonight to show you a little hormone map that might be helpful to you. So if you just joined in tonight, every Wednesday I do a wellness topic that will help you, that helps trauma survivors with chronic health conditions and chronic stress to manage their health naturally and learn how to self-heal from it. So if that resonates with you, please do me a favor, click that like button and turn on your notifications so that you can get a notification each week when I go live so you can learn more for yourself, okay? Today's topic is going to be about our hormones. Is anxiety, depression, and insomnia really just stress, or is it something else, okay? So I've talked to you guys a lot about what adrenal fatigue is and what happens when you are chronically stressed out, right? We have those beautiful glands above our kidneys that are called our adrenal glands. So when we are chronically stressed, our body hyper produces those types of hormones, as well as epinephrine, norepinephrine, lots of stress hormones, right? So what is the cost of that? And what is it doing to your body, right? So let's take a quick look here, see if I can share my screen and bring this up, okay? So this is, let's see. This is basically a very, very minimal breakdown of what our hormone pathways in general look like, okay? Or androgen hormone pathways. Okay, so specifically for men and women. What essentially happens is that all hormones are made from cholesterol. So if you guys are feeling exhausted and you're on a crash diet or anything like that, or not eating, part of that could be or you're on like a very, very low fat diet, your body does need cholesterol to produce hormones. Okay, so understand that that is important. Your body does need a specific amount of fat, usually between at least 20 to 30% in a standard diet. If you're on more of a Paleolithic keto diet, you're going to need more than that. Okay, but your body does need fat and cholesterol to produce hormones, okay? So the cholesterol in your liver converts to something called pregnenolone and then converts to progesterone, okay? So this essentially, what happens with our hormones is we go through these little micro conversions, okay? So if your body, and also know that it's almost like cyclical, okay? Your body has what's called an HPA axis, okay? Axis, and what that does is it's basically your hormone system, okay? Your body has signaling that talks to your adrenals, part of your hypothalamus in your brain, your thyroid, your ovaries or testes, and it basically signals the endocrine system on where your body is at with specific hormones. And it kind of has this like negative feedback loop. Or it's like it like tags the hormones. Check, okay, we got enough of this. Okay, we got too much of this, slow that down. Okay, check. Right? So that's kind of how it works. Works together as a team. So if you have adrenal fatigue or you're chronically exhausted, right? You are somebody who you feel like I was just talking to somebody, Galter Amarillo, who's an excellent, he helps with real estate investing. If you guys are interested, he's awesome. Go check out his page. But we were talking about other people who are like chronically stressed trying to build businesses and how like this process of like burnout, you just have like perpetually go, because you're trying to like, bang something out or you're working so hard. And a little hint, most people that I work with suffer from perfectionism. I've suffered so much from this. And I can tell you that you get stuck in these patterns that lead you straight into a burnout process and adrenal exhaustion. we were talking about how at the end of your at the end of like stressing yourself out, you kind of crash, you go into this crash mode. Okay. And that's partially due to your adrenals. So when you are in that mode and you are just like going and going and going and going and going, and you are either having too much caffeine substances or you're in a chronically stressed out job. If your job, and let's be honest, like how many people right now are not chronically stressed out in the midst of being home, trying to work from home, trying to juggle everything, and everything is in the same exact environment. There's no environmental transfer. You know, it causes, it's wreaking havoc on people's lives with the amount of stress that they can handle because they're expected to juggle so many roles, right? So it's not as compartmentalized as it used to be. The traffic's great working from home, but other parts of it are really challenging. So coming back from my tangent here, a lot of us are under major stress. And one of the points I was trying to make with Galter was how much your adrenals suffer and your hormones actually suffer. And what happens when you are chronically under stress is your body goes through phases of adrenal exhaustion. You know, the first phase might be your super hypercortisol. So your body is actually telling your hypothalamus to produce more progesterone. So you're getting hyperprogesterone. And if it's not using up or the cortisol, it's going to shunt to the estrogen. So sometimes that can create a hypercholesterol state, can not only create that, but also create estrogen dominance. Okay, so there's a term here that I want you guys to understand. It's called estrogen dominance. This can happen in male or female. Okay, in female, this can also look like anxiety, exhaustion, depression. It can also lead to things like bloating and cycles being disrupted, but it could also lead to low testosterone for men, okay, with similar types of symptoms. And so there's always, you know, you always want to look at not just like what's going on, but the why. And so the chronic stress aspect of what's going on with your body can absolutely wreak havoc on your hormones. Now, watch this part. So if your body's saying produce cortisol, produce cortisol, produce cortisol, produce cortisol, over time, you're going to get hypercortisolism, which also amps your blood sugar, which also amps weight gain, right? Because you're going to pump up your blood sugar too much, and then you're not going to use it because you're sitting at your desk all day, or you're stressing out about the election or whatever it may be, right? And then it's like going converted right into your fat cells, right? And so what happens over time is that your body starts becoming either depleted or the cell signaling is not quite as effective. So you're not able to produce as much of the cortisol, okay? And over time, it leads into really bad chronic fatigue. This is one of the parts of chronic fatigue syndrome. And in the heavier stages of this, where your body is just like, nope, I'm done. Like we're not producing any more cortisol. Like obviously it's going to be minimal, but your body will, you know, come up with reserves and things like that. But in stages where your body is just not really reacting or just kind of shutting down because it's trying too hard, it's like almost like the signaling isn't working anymore. Your body will go into complete exhaustion, and that's when you start to get all of your hormones crash, your cortisol crashes, because remember, your progesterone also needs to be shunted here. So in later stages, you can actually get low estrogen and testosterone, okay? But estrogen dominance too, and this is another thing to consider, if you are somebody who's highly stressed out and then you are somebody who has a high level of, wears a lot of things like plastic makeups, you might drink from plastic containers, use microwaves with plastic containers, you're somebody who leaves their water bottles in their car for too long, you're somebody who might have a lot of plastic toxins in their body, and those actually block blocks some of your hormone receptors, which can also lead to estrogen dominance. Okay. The toxins are a big piece of, understanding cellular chemistry and cellular dysfunction and cell signaling. Okay. Toxins can create numerous problems in the body. So you pair that with somebody who's chronically stressed out, is taking in a lot of toxins because they're not aware that what they're doing in their lifestyle is creating problems, right? And then has a ton of stress and excess cortisol, right? You're going to get a recipe for hormone imbalance and anxiety, depression. Now, that's on top of obviously anxiety and depression. I'm going to stop my screen share here. And if that resonates with you guys, again, click that love button. I'd appreciate it if you guys comment and let me know what helps you. It helps the ratings of the video too. And I want to get this out to more people because, to be honest, there are so many people that suffer from chronic stress right now. You know what I mean? Like we're in the midst of one of the most stressful elections. We're in the midst of, everybody working from home during a health crisis. Like, so there's many people that can use this information. And if you are somebody who's seen your health kind of decline over the past few months, there are numerous things that you can do to get yourself back on track. So the good news is that this is more of a reversible type of thing. One of the things, depending on the stage that the patient comes to me in, if they're in complete adrenal exhaustion, like they were already in exhaustion before COVID hit, and then all of a sudden they're just like flat out because they've burnt themselves down and they started working from home, with kids, and now they're really burnt out. And now a lot of their trauma is coming up too because we're forced to slow down and not distract ourselves. That might be a person who needs a lot more support and therapy for their hormones and adrenals. So just a couple of things off the bat. If you notice, and you're resonating with this video, and you notice that you are somebody who is feeling this kind of symptoms, I want you to know that a lot of times this is a reversible effect. Okay, these are physiological changes of the body. Your body is highly adaptable. Okay, so one of the things that I typically recommend to patients is to try and eat more of what's called a low glycemic diet, and shift more from carbohydrate to fat, and fiber, because that slows down blood sugar release, and it also helps with more of the cholesterol building, as well as managing your blood sugar. So you're not getting those blood sugar dips as much. This is really paramount to adrenal issues because you need to be able to manage your energy levels, right? And so if you're getting energy dips from hypoglycemic issues as a secondary issue, then you want to manage your blood sugar. Okay, that's one of the things that gives you that 2 o'clock crash. Okay, so managing your blood sugar is key. Okay, and you might notice if you're in the further stages that you're really craving a lot more sugar and salt, that you are really you're having a really rough time getting up in the morning, kind of dragging yourself out of bed, and then you're like, what's going on? I'm getting insomnia at night. You're in this crap cycle of what your body's doing to you, right? So if you're more in that cycle, then having supplemental help can help kind of boost you out of that. And by the way, this video, I just have to disclaim that this is for informational purposes only. So I cannot medically prescribe this to anybody. I do work with people on a virtual basis, but please know that I can't make any hardcore claims that this will help, as well as this is for informational purposes. Okay, so general statements here and cases that I've seen. So things that help people in more of the late stage adrenal issues, getting people to sometimes if somebody is an extreme trauma survivor, a lot of times we need to introduce something to the body that helps to like calm the nervous system. Okay, so your nervous system is on heightened. A lot of it is just like getting the system to calm down. So I use something called GABA, which is it helps to calm the nervous system, and L-theanine, GABA and L-theanine supplements. The other thing that I like to utilize is either a CBD tincture, a hemp oil, some sort of thing like that, because that will actually help the endocannabinoid system to kick in to help manage pain and neurological stress. I can't tell you the amount of days where it has helped tremendously to not kick up that sympathetic nervous system response when being home trying to get things done with my kids, because a lot of things trigger that with my kids, like certain things with noises and stuff can really send my brain into like the sympathetic overload, right? So that's the thing with trauma survivors, is that your body is like, you can be on hyper alert and your brain is wired for protection and survival versus thriving and creativity and thinking, right? So one other thing that you could do, speaking of that part, is access different parts of your brain. Okay, so you can start to do things to access more of the prefrontal cortex, which is your decision making, your higher level thinking, which will actually bypass parts of your brain that do things that really like kick off that sympathetic nerve response. So kind of tricking the brain by listening to music. That will stimulate parts of your temporal lobe as well. Listening to relaxing music with binaural beats is an excellent way to get your system to calm down naturally. You can do, there's acupressure pads out there, so stimulation of points on the bottom of the feet, or EFT tapping. A lot of times I work with people to try and do like tapping on specific acupressure points of their body. But just those are some ideas for getting the body to calm down. Once the body's calmed down, you really want to go into a state of getting the detoxification pathways moving, especially if somebody is estrogen dominant. Okay, estrogens, our hormones get processed actually more in our liver. So if your body is holding onto toxins or blocking those hormone cells, it's important to do a detox, get those pathways moving in the liver. If they're not moving, if they're not supported nutritionally, then you're going to have a problem breaking down some of the hormones. Okay. Usually I use so many different types of detoxifications depending on if the person has, this type of issue, depending on if the person has a mold toxicity issue, depending on if they have extreme gut pathogenic type of issue, a heavy metal issue. There's a lot of different types of toxins. If you are doing a general cleanse, you're somebody who generally has not had too much of stress, but then since being home, it's kicked off more. I usually use a program by Metagenics, which is like a really good, just like clean hypoallergenic type of program called Clear Change. That one has really helped. Either a 10 to 28 day cleanse is really powerful. It gives you the nutrients to support your cells, as well as, it gets your body to decrease a lot of your toxic load. It's really important. Okay. If you're going to do a detox on your own, make sure that you're having a lot of cruciferous vegetables, lemons. Do not starve yourself. Again, we don't want to go into shutdown mode. You need to be eating if you're doing a detoxification. Okay. A fast is different than a detox. Just FYI there. That gets a lot of patients get confused there. But for now, I'm not going to throw too much at you. I think that if you are somebody who's in this position, those are things that I've seen that are really, really helpful to patients who have a lot of hormone imbalance issues because of the adrenal and chronic stress. Okay, so managing that stress response is paramount. It's not just about like, okay, decrease your stress, right? Because a lot of times, let's be honest, like when somebody's like, oh, just decrease your stress, like you're like, I know how to decrease my stress, right? Like you're like, no shit, right? And that always frustrates me. Like I know to decrease my stress, but as a trauma survivor, your body again is like, it's like you can't help it. Your body is wired for that, right? So your body, you have to learn to have things to support your body to bypass that stress response, and then also have positive coping mechanisms to help reduce that stress response. And the whole point is that sometimes being a stressful response, what might not be stressful for one person might be highly, highly stressful for a survivor. Okay, big difference to understand that. So I hope you found that helpful and validating. I apologize for swearing, but that really does make me upset. I don't when somebody says reduce your stress, like we can't help necessarily what's happening externally. It's more of like our response to stress, as well as how can we regulate our body, right? You can make better choices. If you are a trauma survivor or an abuse survivor, please know that your experiences, whatever they may be, are absolutely valid and not your fault, you know. And so it's important, because I think in the regular medical world, as well as people who are like trying to be nice and help people who are trauma survivors, sometimes there can be there's times there can be an invalidation aspect of what the person is going through, because the other person can't understand. And you know, that's okay. Just know that you know, I will speak as a trauma survivor myself. You know, when somebody says those types of things or anything like that, just know I'm sure it's coming from the best intention, but you know, it's not your fault that your body is hyper responsive to those types of things if you have PTSD. Okay, so please don't own that. Always work to get better. You know, growth, healing is great, but you know, trying to blame a victim of why aren't you getting better? Why does that bother you? And there's like when you're stressed out a lot, is definitely not helpful, and that can actually make things worse. You know, so finding good support system is really powerful, and people who will be there and ask like, hey, what do you need, or how can I help? Things like that is really great. So I hope I'm one of those sources for you and you found value to this today. Again, if you did, please click that thumbs up, love button, share with your friends, and know that especially right now, as we're waiting for results from our election and all kind of sitting at the edge of our seat, I actually saw this awesome meme today for all the women out there, or the mothers. It was like, I have less anxiety after taking a pregnancy test than I do right now. I'm like, wow, that's so accurate. That was really funny. But anyway, thanks so much for joining, and I will see you guys next week.